Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvada. Om Shri Umameshwaraya Namaha. Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namaha. Om Shri Siyavara Ramachandraya Namaha. Om Shri Lakshmi Narayanaya Namaha. Om Shri Narnarayanaya Namaha. Om Shri Krishna Narayanaya Namaha. Om Shri Sajananda Swami Maharajaya Namaha. Sarve Gurubhyo Namaha. Sarve Avtarebhyo Namaha. Dhyanamulam Guror Murti. Mantramulam Guror Vakyam. Pujamulam Guror Padam. Mokshamulam Guror Krupa. Om Namo Hanumate Bhayavanjanaya. Sukham Kuru Hat Swaha. Om Shri Guru Stotram Akhanda Mangalakaram Vyaptamena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Ajnana Timirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Gurudeva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Stavaram Jangavam Vyaptam Yat Kinchit Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapi Yat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sarvashruti Shiro Ratne Virajita Padambujaha Vedantambuja Suryo Yoha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Chaitanya Shashvatam Shantaha Vyomatito Niranjanaha Bindunada Kalatita Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Gnana Shakti Samarudaha Tattvamala Vibhushitaha Bhukti Mukti Pradata Cha Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Aneka Janma Samprapta Karma Bandha Vidaine Atmagnana Pradhanena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shoshanam Bhavasindoscha Gnapanam Sarasapada Guru Padodakam Samyak Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Na Guroradikam Tattvam Na Guroradikam Tapaha Tattvagnanat Param Nasti Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Manyatha Shri Jagannatha Madguru Shri Jagadguru Madatma Sarva Bhutatma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Guru Radhi Ranadischa Guru Paramadevatam Guru Parataram Nasti Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Tameva Mata Chapita Tameva Tameva Bandhu Shasaka Tameva Tameva Vidya Dravinam Tameva Tameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Iti Shri Guru Stotram. Om Shri Krishnaya Namaha. Shri Radha Krishnaya Namaha. We're continuing our contemplation on the multiple approaches to evolve from within. The entire spiritual endeavor, or what is known as personal transformation, spiritual endeavor, sadhana, self-realization, inner awakening, energy awakening, so many names are there. It all refers to the same thing. It is a movement of psychological consciousness from the limited states of fragmentation, limited states of pain, suffering, division, divisiveness, into a permanent realization of the self, the Atma, that is Ananda, that is divine joy, divine bliss, where energy begins to combine together. So on that point, I want to actually show a diagram, and I'll get back to some of these slides in just a moment here. But in the Energy and Personal Excellence program, we have a central concept, and that central concept is about core energy. This is a universal concept. Everybody has energy. Everybody has core energy. Every life form has core energy. As human beings, each one of us has 12 dimensions. And that's what is shown in this diagram. The 12 dimensions are interconnected. And the way I have presented them is that there is one core energy that flows through all 12 dimensions. And so the connection with verse number 5 of Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, Uddareda Atmanatmanam Natmanam Avasadet Atmeva Yatmano Bandur Atmeva Ripur Atmana. Along those same lines, these 12 areas or dimensions or aspects of life are present in nearly everyone. Every human being has them in some form or another. We can either choose to balance them, which is what we should do in my opinion, or we can remain in imbalance. So the first stage of realizing that ultimate goal of the Atma, that to uplift yourself all the way to the Paramatma, or to ask for God's grace ultimately, but to keep moving ahead, the first step is to balance all 12 of these areas. I'll just go through them very quickly. The first stage is excellent health and overall fitness based on stage of life. Second is mental strength. Third is emotional balance and the integration of emotion. Fourth is social balance and relationship development. Fifth is personality and character development. Sixth is family harmony and the flowering of love within the family. Seventh is intimate relationships. Eighth is financial health and growth. Ninth is career and occupation, career occupational development. 10 is the quality of life development and enhancement. The quality keeps increasing. 11th is recreational life, and 12th is spiritual or religious life, spiritual/religious life. Energy flows in all 12 of them. In theory at least, and also in practice, our goal in the EPE program is to balance all 12 areas completely. Now, how does the Bhagavad Gita relate to this? The Bhagavad Gita is teaching us exactly how to do this by keeping attention on either the upward flow or the downward flow, as I mentioned many times before. We know this. Actually, we already know all of this within us. It's not something which we don't know. Sachin isn't saying something new that you don't know already. In fact, the Gita is actually not saying anything that we don't already know. It's already within us. It's actually us only. But we don't realize that for some reason. That's why we're engaging in this process. So the first dimension, excellent health and overall fitness based on stage of life. Everyone is at a different stage of life. We want the best quality fitness and best quality health, physical and mental health, given any stage of life. Whether it's a 5-year-old child or a 90-year-old man or a woman, it doesn't matter. So to keep attention that I want to keep my health very good, not to damage any of it, it means keeping attention on the core energy and using it in an upward momentum towards making the health even better, making it even better every single day. That is exactly when we consider the activity of the Antakaran, as I mentioned yesterday, the Ahankar, Buddhi, Manas, Chitta. This is the internal world. The Ahankar it identifies that I am the body. There is a reality to that. Although so many times we talk about, yes, that I'm not the body, I'm beyond the body, I'm not the body, I'm beyond the body. But hold on a second, let's back up for a moment. Let's not get into that just so fast. Let's also be aware of the fact that the Jivatma is identified with the body and we do feel that we are the body. How can we deny that? So that is a beginning point. To begin with the fact that I am the body is the Jiva. To end with the realization that I am much more than the body is the Atma. This is the progression. It is not an assault on the body. Sometimes in the Eastern tradition or Sanatana Dharma traditions, for some reason over so many centuries, there has been an assault on the body. You just try to just make the body completely like your enemy. The body is not anybody's enemy. Body is something that has to be kept in excellent health, in balance. It has to be maintained in the best possible way. And the same thing is true with the mind. So when we consider the mind is this Antakarana. Antakarana is Ahankar, Buddhi, Manas and Chitta. So the Antakarana is also to be kept very, very, very healthy. Healthy mind, healthy body. We say it all the time. Kids know that. Who doesn't know this? Everybody knows this. But where is the difficulty? Let's go back to this sloka in the Gita. See this verse number 7. Jitatmanah prashantasya paramatma samahitah. See the word Paramatma there? To get to the Paramatma, you have to use your power, internal power. Within that power exists the Atma, and within the Atma exists Paramatma. But to get to that point, look at the first part of this verse. Jitatmanah prashantasya. One who has conquered the self, the one who has won over the fragmentation effect within the 12 dimensions of life. This is my interpretation. We have 12 dimensions of life. We can never get away from them. Anybody who tries is going to create a massive chaos in their system. You cannot get away from your emotions. You cannot get away from your personality. You cannot get away from your family. You cannot get away from your intimate relationships. You cannot get away from your money and financial health and bank accounts. Nor should you have to get away from it. You cannot get away from recreational life. It is all present. The question simply is, are we in that state of jitatmanaha with all these 12? Before we even get to the Atma or anything that is, quote, Ananda, the divine joy that we have been constantly talking about, let's be realistic. The fact is, most people, even if they're trying to realize God, there is a problem somewhere in these 12 dimensions. I can almost guarantee that that is the case. And if there isn't a problem in these 12 dimensions or an imbalance, when I use the word problem, I mean imbalance. If there is not an imbalance somewhere, that means that the foundation is set for true excellence. Jitatmanaha prashantasya. But we have to look truly, genuinely, looking within. You know, this verse, Uddared Atmanatmanam. Wow. To really take hold of that, if I'm going to take hold of that as a being, Sachin, this is my name of the body and all this, before I get to even the Vedantic truths and all, if I'm going to get hold of this, I have to be brutally honest with myself. And I use the word brutally in this way, meaning like totally, unflinchingly, completely. And that is something which we don't do. How in the world will we ever be able to get to this state of jitatmanaha and prashantasya, the peaceful and great? You know, the word prashantasya means one who has peace, one who has stability. Again, the word peace is there, but the word prashanta is more there. It's such an awakened, such a beautiful, harmonious, very steady, integrated, balanced type of state of the mind. That is called prashanta. And it's a Sanskrit word, it's a very beautiful word. And it is only in that state that the energies combine. So although, as I mentioned before, the word energy or Shakti is not directly referenced in any of these verses, as far as I know, there may be one or two that talk about Ojas and things like that. It is hidden, cleverly hidden inside here. It is hidden deliberately to prevent the upasana of the Devi. Because direct upasana of Devi is not for the masses unless there is a proper guru that teaches that thing, because the energy awakens in all different directions. That is why the Sadgurus, including Vedvyasji, even though he wrote Devi Bhagavatam and other things like this, they did not emphasize that too much. Even all the gurus did not emphasize too much Devi Upasana because of the continual problems that have happened within it, within the 5,000 to 7,000 year gap. 5,000 to 7,000 year history. When you start doing Bij Mantra like Klim, Shrim, Kram, this awakens energy, but the intention has to be completely without ego. Then that energy is going to connect with the higher consciousness in the right way. Otherwise, the same energy can go in some other direction. And that is why this is cleverly hidden within the Bhagavad Gita. The whole Shakti Upasana is there in every scripture. In Swaminarayan Sampradaya, the word is used Baliyo Bhakta, Balwan Bhakta, Shurveer Bhakta. Even if you look at Guru Granth Sahib, you'll find similar ideas inside there. They do not directly touch the goddess. Simply because it is too tenuous for most people. That is why I have also been very careful with that. Anybody who wants to do any seed mantra, bij mantra, I also have some gurus that are guiding me along those lines, because it's a very, very tricky thing. So it should be done carefully. My point is that if we are going to activate energy, what are we activating it towards? I'll give you another example of this same point. Take a look at today, the development of all the weapons in the world. Isn't that energy? Isn't that the buddhi being used for destructive purpose? Then somebody might ask why God allows this thing. Well, it's not that God is allowing that. He's given you energy. You decide what to do with it. He's given us buddhi. We can either use that buddhi for constructive purpose or destructive purpose. Building weapons and harming each other and doing this thing. This is human ignorance that is completely opposite of what the verse number 7 is saying. So the energy activation is implied in the verses. Because without energy, Sachin cannot talk about it, we cannot think about it, nothing can happen without energy. But to activate energy, the approach taken in the Vaishnava tradition is an indirect approach. It is not a direct approach to touch energy. Okay, it's like this. If you have a nuclear power plant and the reaction is going on, the uranium and the control rods and all that, the Bij Mantra sadhana is the direct tapping into that power. Reading Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Sutra, Upanishads, Bhajan, Kirtan, different sampradayas and all that, that is where that energy is now flowing in different ways, in very limited, controlled ways. And the gurus knew this. The enlightened sages, of course they know this, but they're not going to tell this thing directly. Simply because the masses cannot handle the activation of that energy. That's why it has to be opened up gradually, carefully. We cannot just activate raw power like that. We must be able to have the steadiness, the intelligence, and the balance upon which the raw power is activated. Just like in a nuclear reactor, you just cannot start the reaction without the control rods. There's a massive control room with thousands of different switches and buttons and God knows what. It's like that. Similarly, the internal realization of the Atma is a realization of the divinity itself, from where infinite energy is coming. So that is the more metaphysical aspect. But before we get to any of those things, if Sachin is going to keep attention on directly stabilizing my life completely in all 12 dimensions, then I am going to be in a state to open up that great steadiness, where energy flow is steady. It is not hyper concentrated, hyper active. We see people doing extreme things in life. That's hyper activation of energy. And then we see people who have very low activation of energy. So that won't work. That's the whole point. So when we actually look at this diagram, we find that it is a total intersection. That this is our day-to-day life. We want to open this energy. Now, again, here's the other point. If you look at something like, let's say, social balance, dimension number 4, how many people are stuck in problematic social relationships? Something is wrong somewhere, some disturbance is there somewhere. If there is disturbance in any one of these, it is going to cause disturbance in all of them. And that's why enlightenment does not occur. This is my opinion. It doesn't happen because of this disturbance. We may know scriptures and do bhajan, kirtan, sadhana and all these other things we do. Even people who do the Shakti Upasana and the Bij Mantra sadhana and all those things that are done. But if they are done, yes, they are good to do. Under the guidance of a bona fide guru, yes, it can be done. There are some really great organizations that are doing Shakti Upasana. It's not like that. There's some bona fide gurus. But at the same time, one must be aware of how energy is going. Think of it this way. If energy goes in a hyper concentrated way, let's say in recreational life, that somebody's just going after only recreation, ignoring other things. How is that helpful? So keeping them in sync. Now you will see in this diagram, each dimension intersects with core energy through the 12-sided duodecagon figure. This 12-sided star here is actually representing all 12 dimensions. So number 1 intersects with core energy through the other 12 dimensions, including itself. It intersects with itself and the other 11. That's what that white star represents. So for example, if I am going to balance my health and really keep my health really active and stable, if I'm going to do that, it is going to have to happen by keeping all of these other areas intersected with my physical body and its function, because my physical body is the foundation for doing all the other things. It's like that. That's true with all of them. So that's where the energy is able to move in this way. And when we do sadhana, when we do any mantra sadhana, so like I said, there are different mantras have different effects. So for example, if you're doing Chamunda Devi mantra, Om Aim Rim Klim Chamunda Viche, anybody can do the mantra. But again, one must be aware what is happening with it. Because what can happen, depending on one's intention, it can cause increased energy to go into any one of these or multiple of them. It depends if you want that. So to be aware of how the raw energy takes a different form. That is why actually it's not going to produce anything negative, but it will give you the experience you're looking for at some point. That is called bhukti and mukti. Bhukti means the material world experience. You see, so the material world experience, if we want that, that is also available through the Devi Upasana, through the Bij Mantra Sadhana. And then the mukti is also available through that. It depends on our intention. It is trigunatmika, within the realm of the three gunas. So that's why the Bhagavad Gita doesn't talk about this, simply because it is taking that raw power and directly placing it into the Atma. It is an attempt to bypass the three gunas of Maya, or to pierce through them, like I mentioned multiple times before, taking that pure energy and piercing it through and allowing the Atma to shine and the Paramatma's and devotion to God, and in that state to perform all the action. That is what the Gita is teaching. The Gita doesn't show any Bij mantras or anything like that. Why is that? Why is that the case? They're hidden within there. Because once you start trying to get to the prashanta state, you or I or anybody is going to be faced with the 12 dimensions of life. And we are going to have to balance them out or find a way to integrate them or do something with them before we get to this state of Paramatma Samahita. We will never get to that state. See, that is why 99% of the people never get to God, simply because of the imbalances in the 12 dimensions. Keeping total attention there will lead to Jitatmana. This word Jitatmana, in my interpretation, is the balancing of all 12 dimensions. That you have mastered them. You are in charge of them. You are not overrun by any of them. You are masterfully navigating through them, like a great enlightened being who is just navigating this in every area of one's life. Never tearing oneself apart, never getting caught somewhere. The analogy that I like to give sometimes is of a spider that spins a web, but it doesn't get caught in the web that it spins. You've heard me say that before probably. Human beings spin all kinds of webs and they're caught in each and every one of them. So that is not Jitatmanaha. Jitatmanaha prashantasya paramatma samahitaha. See, and now if you look at the next 2 points here, Shitoshna Sukhadukkeshu Tatha Mana Pamanayoho, this total integration, what is this referring to? It is referring to the fact that when you go back to this diagram, that one's power is totally intact. The enlightened being who is a Jitatmana is never going to allow, under any circumstances, for any reason, under any situation, for anybody to ever disturb that wealth. This is our wealth. And in that wealth, what do we find in the Bhagavad Gita? What do we just read? Shitoshna Sukha Dukkeshu. Total stability. Total realization. Among all of the pairs of opposites, among all the fluctuations of life, one is a liberated being. He's a Jitatmana. Wow, how tremendous that is. One should be excited even to listen to these. I mean, it excites me to even talk about it. It's very exciting. Yes, this is really cool stuff, right? It's there. If we want it, it's available for us. What do we need? We recognize that every enlightened sage has done this. Vedvyasji himself, who wrote the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna Bhagwan didn't write the Bhagavad Gita. We don't know what Sri Krishna Bhagwan wrote, if he wrote anything at all. But we know that Vedvyasji is the one who wrote all these things. And he's an enlightened being. He's sitting in Samadhi. He's seeing everything from all sides. Every angle. He wrote all the scriptures, the Puranas and the Bhagavatam, and you name it, the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, the Vyasa Sutra. All these basic texts are written by him. You see? So he's living, whatever he's talking or describing from his realizations. In the same way, we are encouraged by God through Vedvyasji to realize these truths now, not later, not tomorrow, not 1 minute from now, right now. That this is who I am. I am a balanced being completely. And if I detect imbalance, Sachin has to do everything possible to keep attention on that imbalance or deficiency and fix it. Who is going to fix my problem? Nobody except me. That's what the Gita is saying. Uddareda atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva yatmano bandhur atmaiva ripuratmana. I have to fix my own problems. Yes, I can get help from teachers, from gurus, from scriptures, from images of God, from murtis, from icons, from so many things, different vigaras. You get help from whoever you need. From family members, from friends, from co-workers. Get help from anybody. But it is only the individual who is going to be able to uplift yourself by using energy in the right way to balance out the dimensions 12, and then to utilize that balanced state for the leap into Brahma Vidya. Esha Brahmi Sthiti Partha Nainam Prapta Vimuyati Sthitva Samantakaalepi Brahma Nirvanam Ruchyati. The last verse in chapter 2, that we want to get to the Brahmic consciousness. We can never get there until these 12 are totally in sync. It's never going to happen. That's why it hasn't happened. Otherwise, millions of people would be enlightened in this world, and the chaos of the world would stop. There wouldn't be any weapons in this world. There wouldn't be any conflict left with anybody. There would only be love and harmony and peace and joy and tolerance and care, and it would be a heavenly place within less than a few months probably. But it doesn't happen that way because of the continuous imbalances due to ajnan, due to the ego that is taking the core energy and it is hyper-focusing it, tearing it apart, funneling it together, and it is causing damage to itself as well as to others. That's the Antarashatru, we talked about it before, the inner enemies. So this is how all this connects. Now let's take a look at this sentence here at the bottom, something which I wrote some years back, that there is only one core energy that takes multiple forms in multiple ways. एक ही शक्ति है और वो शक्ति अनेक form में आ जाती है. It takes different forms. It is up to you, meaning you or me, it is up to you how you want to use this energy. When I asked myself this question, how am I using the same power inside on a day-to-day basis? How to use it? Using it for one's benefit requires one to know first the difference between benefit and harm. How can I use it for my benefit unless through viveka, discriminative understanding, I can understand what is harmful to me and what is beneficial for me? If I don't realize that for myself, due to my ignorance and ajnan and my own distortions, I will keep using it in the wrong way. I will keep using it for my harm. So without being aware of this difference, in the real sense, many people mistakenly experience harm as benefit and benefit as harm. Can you see this difference? Seeing this difference is a form of meditation. यही एक प्रकार का ध्यान है. It is a type of dhyan, it's a meditation to see, oh wait, harm versus benefit. Well, wait a minute here. I'm going to eat, let's say, 2 chocolate bars. Is that benefiting me or is that harming me? But then there's, the desires want that, but then it may not be the best thing for my body. At any given point, at every given turn, to keep looking harm versus benefit, and in doing so, that is the practical way of truly realizing the intrinsic meaning of Uddareda Atmanatmanam. This is a matter of practice and application. Sachin is speaking right now only for Sachin. That's it. Others may listen to it for their benefit. If that is will of God, divine, that's fine. But if I don't do this myself, who's going to do it for me? So the application is process that I'm trying to show here, that the application begins this way. We recognize what is harm. The word that is used here is ripu, that atmaiva ripuratmanaha. Right? So we understand this idea. Again, This is a day-to-day evolution. Now, I do want to mention just a couple of connectors. We've talked about the 9 forms of devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Arachanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. They again all have energy within them that is given in that particular way towards Paramatma. So when the balanced state is there, the bhakti that is done through the balanced state of the mind, that is very close to Siddha Bhakti. But to get to the balanced state of mind, the 9 forms of devotion can promote that balance. So if you go back to the diagram again, this diagram, we look at dimension number 12, spiritual religious life. That's where all the sadhana and everything is shown. Yes, doing good quality sadhana, not just quantity, good quality, brings balance into all 12 areas. Same thing is true with all these other things. You know that if we go for a nice walk in the park, recreational thing, dimension 11. But if the quality is of a high quality, it is going to enliven all 12 areas. So keeping attention on the deficiency, on where it exists in these 12, deliberately, and then taking steps deliberately to resolve that deficiency, is what will, it is the direct application of that verse, Uddareda Atmanatmanam and Jitatmana. We get to that state of Jitatmana Prashantasya. So that is, I wanted to share these thoughts here today, and we will now continue with our sadhana. We'll stop the recording here.